And we're live. Good to have you here, everyone. Big news day today. We got Tulsi cleaning house, firing a whole bunch of people. And by the way, there's going to be more to come. She promised this. It's happening. Getting rid of the people that are perceived to not be on board with Donald Trump's agenda. Meanwhile, Rikers Island has been taken over by the feds. Tom Homan's ICE is right there in the prison. You know what that means. We're going to get into all of that as AOC decides she's going to go out and threaten Tom Homan. Look how that's going to end. Grand jury indictment of Judge Dugan in Wisconsin. It comes on the heels of the subpoenas being issued, of course, for Letitia James there in New York. Different reasons, of course, but wow, things are really heating up. We want to talk about all of it. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is kind of unhappy about that plane, that Air Force One. Not too thrilled with Boeing, shall we say, and he really would like that one out of Qatar. He actually was slamming Air Force One as being puny compared to all the other jets. You know, I've noticed one thing in my career, like CEOs are really into the size of their jets. You can interpret that however you want, but they're really into their jets. Welcome to the program. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, comment. We are live. I can see it all. Tulsi Gabbard following through, promising she was going to clean house and clean up the intel department. She's head of the DNI, and she's already making some key moves, firing a couple of people that are considered pretty critical, pretty crucial, but she considers them effectively to be on the other team. One named Mike Collins, we're going to get into him and his deputy. Again, this is the headline, Tulsi Gabbard firing deep state heads of Security Council who opposed Trump. So these are people that were effectively obstacles to the agenda, the MAGA agenda. And Tulsi's like, well, hey, you know, you're either on the team or you're not on the team. But Intel is not going to run the team. There is a new CEO, effectively. The chief executive office is being held by one President Trump, and either you're going to follow through on that agenda or you're out. And so in this case, they're out. She perceived them as threats to the agenda, to the MAGA platform, and therefore Mike Collins and his deputy, Maria Longen-Rykoff, they are gone. This is a firing, again, enacted by one Tulsi Gabbard. This was the gentleman, Mike Collins, who was the acting chairman of the National Intelligence Council, and again, his deputy, both being seen as obstacles to the Trump agenda. In the case of Mike Collins, well, oh gosh, this one's pretty simple. Apparently, he's like besties with the guy who orchestrated the whole 51X spooks thing, you know, coming forward and saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was not actually anything other than misinformation, disinformation, provided courtesy of the Russians and Giuliani, when it turned out, yes, the FBI was investigating the laptop and everybody knew it, but they decided to lie anyway. And they placed that story, that letter, remember, in Politico. Well, Mike Brennan was the architect of all of that, along with Antony Blinken. So Mike and Antony got together and then went out and enlisted people to sign that letter. And it is believed that Mike Collins had a hand in that as well. So obviously that's not going to work. Okay, so this is per the New York Post. Collins had close ties to Mike Morrell, the former deputy director of the CIA, who penned a letter that I just mentioned in 2020 that claimed Hunter Biden's controversial laptop had all the earmarks of a classic Russian information operation. He also set out to get signatures from top ex-intelligence employees. Whoa. Okay, so that's kind of a disqualifier, if you would. Meanwhile, his deputy, Longen-Rykoff, has been a key advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion agendas. Well, that just has you finished these days. Forget about that, because it's, what do you know, against the Constitution, and is, quote, radically opposed to Trump. This is according to whistleblowers. So those allegations being made, and Tulsi saying, all right, you know what, see, I don't need this. Don't forget, this is what she promised. I want to go back to just a few weeks ago when she was on Fox and Friends in the morning, and she promised this. Remember, she was carrying out this investigation. We saw a lot of fireworks with Pete Hegseth, of course, over at the Pentagon, firing a lot of people. A lot of people said, wait a second, I was on his team. What are you doing firing me? In this case, Tulsi was very systematic about it. Perhaps we can credit her years in government, her ability to sort of run that team and very efficiently work through things. She got her intelligence together. She fired these two top people, and we can anticipate that there are many, many more to come. I want to go to Tulsi here on Fox and Friends, promising exactly this. Take a listen.
Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is here, and she's saying this. deep state criminals, and she puts them on notice, referring to 2 alleged leakers of classified info of the DOJ for prosecution. So 2 and more are coming. 3rd referral is on the way. Here to explain is the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Director, great to see you in person.
Good to see you, Brian.
So I read about this. You indicated to me this was happening. 2 people have been found to be leaking. A 3rd on its way. Can you give me the nature of the leaks and how you discovered it?
Let's just first of all point out what we know has been the problem for a very long time. One of the reasons why the American people voted resoundingly for President Trump was to root out the kind of politicization and weaponization of intelligence that has really undermined the trust the American people have in the intelligence community and the national security state, but really what also directly undermines our own national security. So I made it very clear to the U.S. Senate, to the American people when I had the honor of being appointed to this position, that we will not allow this to continue. We take this very seriously. It is illegal to leak classified information. And so what you're seeing here is me carrying out on the promise and the mandate the American people gave Trump. We conducted our own internal investigation. We have referred them now to the Department of Justice and the FBI for an official criminal investigation, because these are crimes and people need to be held accountable to put a stop to this.
When you were Congresswoman, we talked about this. There's people within the department not selling secrets to Russia or China.
Well, we're keeping an eye out for that, too.
Absolutely.
But
undermining the policy of the administration, the first administration, working against you at the CIA, working against you. Now you're finding this out. So you found people who seem motivated to undermine the president.
Yeah. When we look at the examples that I've seen just in the short time that I've been in this position, what they consist of is essentially very selective leaks to their friends in the propaganda media that twist and manipulate intelligence directly to undermine the president's policies and his aggressive work to keep the American people safe.
So she's not messing around here. I just want to point out that, interestingly, the timing on this is probably not a coincidence, because recently you saw that the ODNI, which of course is the office she leads, came out with an assessment basically saying that TDA, Tren de Aragua, which is the Venezuelan gang that Donald Trump and his administration has determined to be a significant threat to the United States, so much so that they're enacting the Aliens Enemy Act to deport them. Well, they came out there at ODNI and said, nope, they're not a threat. So that would obviously be very much in opposition of what the Trump administration is trying to do. It's very clear on that front. So again, I think that may have had some role in her moving forward so immediately. She's been trying, of course, to root out some of these problem people. Now, if you go over to CNN, they'll tell you these were great people, they're brilliant people, that we need them because they're the ones that are trying to assess all the threats that are out there against us. And while I don't dispute that maybe they were good at assessing some of the threats, I think this administration has a different view of those threats that are out there, and is very willing to hear different sides of the argument. And so if you're so wedded to one idea and you're so public about being wedded to that idea and perhaps flying in the face of whatever it is that the Trump administration may need or want, then you're going to have a problem there at Tulsi Gabbard's, in Tulsi Gabbard's division. We've seen this sort of all along, right? That the deep state intel department is effectively running things. And it's what Donald Trump was up against, don't forget, before, because he came into the administrative office and he thinks, okay, I'm CEO, right? Like, that's his background. He's a business guy. He thinks, I'm going to put my people in. They're going to do what we need and want. And all of a sudden he runs into this giant deep state apparatus, the swamp that he was trying to drain. And he found that it was really, really difficult to drain, because they were going to try and kill him before he could get rid of them. And this time around, he's like, you know what? All bets are off. I'm putting my people in. My people are going to do what my people need to do to make sure that we are getting the policies that I so believe in and I so campaigned on and people elected me for enacted. Whether you consider what's going on in terms of TDA and trying to get Venezuelans involved with this gang, or MS-13 out of the country, or whether you consider it even what was going on in terms of trying to get all the intel on Epstein. Remember Pam Bondi and the frustration she was feeling because there was an effort underway to basically put up a blockade against her. She demanded all of those documents from the New York FBI field office, and they wouldn't turn them over. So, what do you know? The New York field office guy took a retirement. He actually didn't get fired, so I guess he gets his pay for the rest of his life. But, maybe he should have been fired. He wasn't willing to turn this stuff over. And not only was he not willing to turn it over, he actually was encouraging people to oppose what the administration was asking for. So he got sent packing, and what do you know? By Monday morning, Pam Bondi had those documents she so needed, remember?
We all did. And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Cash is going to, Director Patel, is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay, I want to be clear because I think people got frustrated because they were expecting more. You were expecting more, and you didn't find out less than 24 hours before the release. You got a whistleblower that confirmed that there were way more documents that they were supposed to turn over, and then you found out just before that.
Well, sure. And you're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. There were flight logs, there were names and victims' names. And we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York. Yep. So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Cash is going to get me and himself, really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. And, we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims of Epstein.
I just want to add to that.
Well, you had identified.
The reality on that situation was, yes, they were trying to effectively put up a blockade. And I think we kind of all have our suspicions as to why, my own suspicion being that most likely Jeffrey Epstein was some kind of intel asset. And that's just not my suspicion. I've actually spoken to sources who were quite close to him, including his doctor, who talked to him about 24 hours before his alleged passing, death, suicide, as they call it. And his doctor even said to me he did not believe that was the case. He did believe that he was working for Israeli and U.S. intelligence, and these were his suspicions. He had not had that confirmed to him in any way, shape, or form. I have not had that confirmed to me, but I think, we weren't born yesterday. And so that may have been why they were trying to put up a stone wall when it came to Pam and her team trying to get this information. But again, we should all be on the same team, right? And there's a new CEO in place. I keep using that word CEO because a CEO needs everybody sort of, full steam ahead, all chasing the same dream, which in this case would be the policies that would clean up the country, get rid of crime, improve the economy, etc. And part of that means finding out what went down with Epstein, even if it means, right, implicating some members of the U.S. government. So Pam is getting that truckload of Epstein documents, which, by the way, they are going through right now, as we speak. And she has been very cautious about releasing information. I know a lot of people have their own conspiracies about that, but she's making it very clear she does not want any of the victims who have not agreed to come forward to be implicated in any of this. But, I guess I would just go back to this. You know what? If you're not on the team, you probably shouldn't be in government right now. And I think that's becoming very, very apparent. And for good reason, right? For good reason. We are totally independent on the Trish Regan Show. We love being independent. We got lots to talk about, including, oh my gosh, AOC threatening Homan, including ICE taking over Rikers Island and what that means, including breaking news on a federal district judge saying, you know what, we can move forward with the Aliens Enemies Act and you can deport members of TDA as a result. The feds are seizing control of Rikers Island. This is unbelievable, you guys. I mean, it needed to happen. It sort of obviously should have happened. But, you know, New York, they didn't want anybody interfering, even with criminals there on Rikers Island. In fact, Letitia James, et cetera, they were putting up all of these obstacles to that one. It all happens, right, as we're looking at Letitia James, who's getting subpoenaed in the mortgage case. Subpoenaed in the mortgage case. Well, you know, they can be subpoenaing her in perhaps this case of fighting ICE there at Rikers, because that's another one where the state of New York is just in total opposition of what they're trying to accomplish there at Rikers. Tom Homan speaking out on this and making it very clear. This is just last night on our friend Laura Ingraham, one of my former colleagues at Fox's show, and he says, you know what? I'm coming for you. I'm coming for every single one of you. You're at Rikers. You're a prisoner. You're not going to stay in this country.
Getting ICE officers back in Rikers is meaningful, because we agree that, you know, the worst of the worst, the firearms violations, the murderers, the kidnappers, the rapists, you know, will come to our attention, term release, we can grab them. But I've made it clear, I want everybody. If you're an illegal alien, you get booked in Rikers Island, I don't care if it's for shoplifting, I want them. So this is a start to deal with the worst of the worst in the beginning, but I made it clear that I plan on the whole of them. I want everybody. So we're going to work toward that. We agreed to some other things I'm not going to discuss on national TV, because I don't want the city council to know what I'm doing. City council is fighting the mayor and everything. So let's surprise them on what we're coming to the table with and let them sue me. Bring it, because I'm done. I'm not running a popularity contest. I came to New York to get meaningful action. We got a lot of words. The last meeting I had, today I came, I want action, I want a plan, and we're leaving with a partial plan, but I'll come back every week if I have to until we finish this plan. But it's a good first step to get back on Rikers Island. That's a game changer.
Amazing, amazing. Total game changer. He's back there in Rikers Island, as he should, right? I mean, in other words, if you committed a crime and you've been thrown in prison for that crime and you're not even a citizen, like, why are taxpayers actually paying for your 3 squares a day? Thank you very much. This is something that came up as recently as February 14th. Everybody criticized the New York mayor for this one. They're, he's in bed with the Trump administration because he's willing to do this. No, it's just common sense. And by the way, it's the law. How many times do we have to go over this? It can go all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't care, guys. You know what? The one thing that the federal government does have power on is who's actually here. Listen to the New York mayor, Eric Adams, saying he's teaming up with Homan on this one.
You've agreed to sign an executive order to open up an ICE office at Rikers Island so that these dangerous criminals that are here illegally can be deported. Tell the folks at home, because they'll hear this, they'll say, oh, they're going to come after me next. You said these are the worst of the worst. So who is at Rikers Island that will be deported? What have they done? And
you bring in 2 points where the far left has hijacked this narrative. ICE is running in our schools, ICE is running in our churches, and they are creating this frenzy. They're not in the business of just grabbing children. And we need to, just stop all this noise. Rikers Island, particularly after all the reforms, Rikers Island is now having some of the most dangerous people in our city. And by having ICE on Rikers Island, part of our gang intelligence, using our intel with NYPD, correction officers, we can identify those gangs inside and outside on the street. There was no reason they were removed from Rikers Island. And as I sat down with Tom earlier, I said that we're going to look at all the legalese. I'm able to do an executive order to put them back on Rikers Island, what they should be with part of our criminal justice apparatus.
I mean, yeah, right? Again, common sense. You're here illegally. You commit a heinous crime so bad that they put you in Rikers. But no, Letitia James and everybody else, they're going to defend you. Kathy Hochul, they're going to say, can't have ICE over there in Rikers deporting people. And Tom Homan's like, you better believe we can. You better believe we will. And that's exactly what's going down. So really kind of an interesting twist in all of this, and it shouldn't even be a twist. It's like kind of just the pendulum swinging back to normalcy, like the way it used to be, right? Until everybody got all cray-cray because of Donald Trump. Now you wonder, okay, if they can't deport them, what actually is going to happen? Is this going to be Alcatraz? I mean, is he taking a page out of El Salvador's book and he's going to retrofit Alcatraz? Is that where people go? Is that the next stop? Could be. In fact, Pam Bondi says she thinks it could be kind of an economical arrangement.
The president suggested over the weekend maybe rebuild and reopen Alcatraz, put him there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean someplace.
I'm all for that. All for that. And I think it will be a cost savings. We'll have specially trained guards. They'll be in isolation. They won't be able to run their businesses. And it sends a very strong message that if you do this, you are going to be out of our society forever.
Wow. Out of our society forever, indeed. Alcatraz is kind of a scary thought, if you would, right? You know, Tom Homan is kind of, dare I say, a scary guy. Tom Homan is somebody who's a total badass, who's not willing to kind of suffer fools gladly. I want to show you an excerpt of a hearing from a couple of years ago, just so you fully comprehend what the Democrats are now dealing with, because he is awesome.
Mr. Homan.
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
Oh, there's more. There's more. Yeah, he made it clear. I'm a taxpayer and you work for me. But there's more to this. In fact, I remember when he went after, let's see if we can pull this for you guys. Remember when he went after AOC because she just couldn't quite get it, totally couldn't quite get it. Oh, I got it right here. It was actually in my shorts feed. I think we should take a look at this one because AOC got a little taste of her own medicine being put in her place. Unbelievable that they're actually thinking about this woman for the presidency. Homan told her how it goes.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their...
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father from his
Mr. Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the memo is submitted to the record for review. Inspector General Costello, one last thing.
It's almost like she just doesn't understand the way the world works, right? I mean, he's sort of planning it, out and saying, look, if I'm a U.S. citizen and these things happen, here's the result. So why would it be any different? This is a woman who's losing it, right? Losing it because, Tom Homan might be coming for members of Congress because they actually tried to body slam some DHS agents, and she's losing it over that. It's like she just needs to understand this is the way the world works, lady.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Wow. You might have a problem. And again, we can escalate it all the way through the courts, and the courts are going to make a decision that the executive branch and Congress, by the way, has this power to actually enforce immigration rules. I mean, you can go to the Supremacy Clause if you'd like to, because the Supremacy Clause actually spells it out quite nicely. That states, while they may have their own ideas on whether someone can be here legally or not, in fact, the Supremacy Clause actually is the final deciding power. And the Supremacy Clause ensures Article 6, Clause 2, that federal immigration laws override conflicting state laws when states try to enforce immigration independently. As in Arizona's SB 1070 law, the Supreme Court has struck down those efforts as unconstitutional. Arizona versus United States 2012. So there you go. I mean, you get all these lawyers in Congress, and yet none of them really actually understand the law. I'll tell you, this one district attorney does, out of Pennsylvania, making the decision that, you know what? The 1798 Aliens Enemy Act is good to go. That the Trump administration may and can use the 1798 Act to deport members of the known violent gang TDA from Venezuela out of the country. Stephanie, Haynes was the district judge, the federal district judge that made this decision. She announced just yesterday they can, in fact, use this Alien Enemies Act for deportations of gang members. This seems to echo what we had actually heard in a temporary basis from the Supreme Court. There's been a lot of back and forth, and you have a lot of different judges all over the country, some of whom have a very political agenda trying to get in the way of this. But this is the biggest that's just come out recently, and pretty significant, important, because it now suggests that they can move forward as they had anticipated with these. So again, the Pennsylvania U.S. District Judge, Stephanie Haynes, ruling that the federal government can use the 1798 law to deport Venezuelan gang members who are believed to be trying to sow violence and distrust, etc., and are working against the U.S. government. Remember, as we began the show, and I was talking about Tulsi Gabbard and how she fired a couple of people and more are on the way. Well, some of that has to do with her department having issued a report saying, oh, there's no problem with TDA. And the Trump administration's like, excuse me? Because, yeah, there's a problem with TDA. This is a gang that's violent and at odds with the U.S. interests. Maduro is somebody who clearly is not on our side. We've talked about that a lot, over the years, and I have a lot of experience there reporting from Venezuela and reporting on that entire situation. So Nicolas Maduro being a known foe of the United States, and this being a gang, it is believed by some members of the intel community that these gang members are being sent purposely by Nicolas Maduro to the U.S. Whether or not that's true, the fact that you have gang members that are violent and in the U.S. from a country that is at odds with the United States of America seems to be enough, would be enough, should be enough. Anyway, she's saying it is enough. So that's a very, very big deal.
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot...
I want to just, as we lead into this next soundbite, I want to go to this because a couple of weeks ago, Stephen Miller was adamant that the Supreme Court was on their side on this one and that they should be able to deport people that are believed to be at odds with U.S. interests. Whether you're talking about the Aliens Enemy Act, whether you're talking about the 1952 Act, which was put in place to afford for the State Department to be able to deport students that they believed were at odds with U.S. interests. All of this comes back to, okay, what is good for our country? And if somebody is here illegally or somebody is even here legally with a visa and they do something bad, you should have the ability and the jurisdiction to get rid of them. Here we go.
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said, because it was all removal.
Oops. This is pretty funny, guys.
Court case.
We're going to go back. He's going to correct him.
But will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said, because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case. Clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention. and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill, it's
clarification that's the
important.
case.
He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's
believe
an illegal
he is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore, the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even
to what
allowed me
country?
to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
So Marco Rubio on Sunday morning said this. On Saturday night, another 10 criminals from
He's changing the subject. The problem at this point is that you now have many district courts with different decisions. And so this will have to go through the appellate system. The question then becomes, can the Trump administration say, okay, well, Pennsylvania said it's okay, so we're going to move forward and we're going to deport some of these people. I suspect that that's exactly what they're going to do, sort of, move first, ask questions later. Eventually it'll work its way through the appellate system and likely up to the Supreme Court. I would anticipate that the Supreme Court would come to the conclusion that, yes, if you have people that are deemed threats here in the United States of America, if they are known to be threats and possibly being sent by countries who are trying to mess with us, for lack of a better term, then you would be able to use what has been in place since 1798 with the Aliens Enemy Act. That would be my anticipation. But as for whether the Trump administration moves forward with additional deportations, I suspect they will. And what would stand in the way of that? Not much. Because unless you're going to impeach him, and that's not going to happen right now, there's basically free reign for him to continue doing this. So his goal is to clean up the country and to get rid of illegals that have criminal records. Don't forget, these numbers are insane. This is off the top of my head, but we've gone through this before. Over 600,000 people that are known criminals are here illegally in the United States. And more than 50,000 of those people have really, really bad stuff. We're talking murder, sexual assault, you name it, okay? So do you really want to be protecting those people if you know that these are the bad guys and they're here illegally? It kind of seems to be pretty obvious that you should be deporting them, because why should it be the burden of the U.S. taxpayer to even have to take care of them, whether it be at Alcatraz or Rikers Island or anywhere else? Now, Garcia, you haven't heard a lot about him, right? Garcia, remember that guy, the wonderful father, even though his wife had requested help from authorities because of domestic violence, whatever. Well, he got deported down to El Salvador. one of our team members here on the Trish Regan Show, David, was just down in El Salvador. He actually was just meeting with Bukele, and he went and did a tour of CICOT, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, he sent me the video, and I probably should show it to you, but it gave me nightmares. So I'm going to refrain. But David Leatherwood, Brokeback Patriot is his name on Twitter if you want to go check out some of the footage. But it's pretty unbelievable. Bukele, however, I would point out, percentage-wise, has fewer deaths in his prison system than we do here in the United States of America. Just saying, okay? On a per capita basis. Anyway, David was down there. He saw this. I said to David, the one thing I want you to find out, and he did, was whether or not Garcia is suspected of crimes there in El Salvador. In other words, he's still in prison, right, in El Salvador. The reason is, David confirmed through Bukele that yes, indeed, he is believed to be a gang member and they had stuff on him, and hence he is still in prison in El Salvador. So there you go. Wow. Okay. Unbelievable. We have more breaking news to get to. Subscribe, share, like. It's great to have so many people here. I'm looking at all your comments as they're coming in. Don Backer reminding you to smash the likes. It helps the algorithm. My gosh, we got breaking news. Grand jury indicting none other than Judge Dugan out of Wisconsin. You remember Judge Hannah Dugan, the lady who took it upon herself to say, well, we're not going to allow this guy to be deported. I'm not going to let ICE come for him, even though he is alleged to have had a domestic violence incident. I mean, it's like, guys, like, what are we doing protecting the criminals, for goodness sakes? And by the way, you are a judge, meaning you are supposed to uphold the rule of law. Hannah Dugan, here she is. What a beauty. That has nothing to do with anything. I'm just saying. So she's, pouring her heart out for the guy who's been accused of domestic violence, who's in the country illegally. The agents come for him. They're there in the courtroom. What does she do? She takes him into her back office in her chambers along with his attorney. And she says, here you go. You can go out the back way. This is what's being alleged. Now, she says she's totally innocent. I guess she's innocent because she figures, what is ICE doing in my courtroom? Again, I go back to none other than the Constitution itself. We'll go into the Supremacy Clause. We'll go into the Commerce Clause. You name it. There's a law of naturalization. I mean, it's all there. If any of these people would just, do a refresher course from law school, Law 101, Constitutional Studies 101, they'd be able to figure it out. But they have made a very deliberate decision. They believe in open borders, and therefore the rule of law no longer matters to them. In their courtroom, anything goes, right? You're illegal. Hannah Dugan's going to make sure that the feds don't get you, and she's going to escort you out the back door, kind of like she had to escort herself out the back door as the reporters came questioning her. Remember this little moment? It's good. Let's watch it together.
Judge, anything to say about this?
And off she flees. I should note she has been relieved of her duties there as a judge in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, because, you can't really be a judge while you're being investigated for a federal crime, obstruction of justice. So it is now official. The left is going nuts. She's being heralded as some kind of hero. I've heard from some people on the left they'd love to see her run for vice president on a ticket with AOC at the top and Hannah Dugan as vice president. And I'm like, wow, you guys are gluttons for punishment, aren't you? You really and truly just want to keep on losing. Don't you understand? One of the main reasons that Donald Trump was elected, and one of the main reasons people believe in him, is because he's trying to get rid of all the illegal crime that's happening here in this country. And people like Hannah Dugan are just trying to perpetuate it. She's in the way. So yeah, that kind of has to change, and it will change. I mean, she's been indicted officially now, and I suspect she will be facing serious consequences. And that has to happen. You cannot have a legal system where you have a complete breakdown in law and order. That doesn't work as a country. It doesn't work as an economy. It doesn't work, period. Unbelievable, right? We're talking about who's going to run in 28. Can you imagine? I don't think it can be Kamala Harris. I don't think it can be Hillary Clinton. I don't think it can be AOC, but maybe George Clooney will make the final decision, right? We got news on the real reason one George Clooney actually decided to write that op-ed in the New York Times, taking Joe Biden totally out and putting Kamala Harris in. Apparently he's not very popular in Hollywood circles right now because they figure he totally lost it. You know, he did. I mean, when Donald Trump was defending Joe Biden, because he's like, gee, that's kind of mean what they did to him, right? Deep state in action. Oh, we don't think you can win it, so we're going to take you out in the 11th hour. Unbelievable. And believe me, it was no accident that Jill Biden wore red, head to toe, when she went to vote on Election Day. In other words, the Biden family did not appreciate this move from one George Clooney and the Democrat establishment. But it seems the real reason, when it all comes down to things, is George's ego was a little ruffled. You see, apparently, Biden had no idea who he was. And, you know, that's one way to really get under the skin of a Hollywood actor. Watch.
With us now is CNN anchor, chief Washington correspondent, and fantastic author, Jake Tapper. Jake, tell us more about that moment between President Biden and George Clooney and how it ultimately led to Biden dropping out of the race.
So thanks so much for having me, John. So President Biden came into that Los Angeles fundraiser June 15th. And behind the scenes, there were little tiny fundraisers for the big donors. There was the event on stage with Jimmy Kimmel and Barack Obama, but then also behind the scenes, photographs and smaller speeches for big donors. And it was there that President Biden walked over to George Clooney, and Clooney realized, and other people witnessing realized, that Biden did not recognize him. This despite the fact that they'd known each other since roughly after 9/11. They'd had many meetings when Biden was vice president. They'd known each other for a long time. Biden had awarded him a Kennedy Center award in December 2022. And obviously, Clooney was throwing this fundraiser for him, a record-setting fundraiser. Biden was just walking around saying, hello, thanks for being here, hello, thanks for being here. And an aide said, you know George. And the president was like, yeah, sure, how are you, thanks for being here. And the aide had to say, no, George Clooney. And it was just shocking for everyone involved. And in fact, it wasn't just those in that specific conversation that were shocked. President Obama was there. He was stunned. He attributed it to the rough schedule that Biden had going from Europe to Delaware, back to Europe, and then to L.A. But he realized later on that it wasn't just the schedule that was the issue.
So George is like, I'm sorry, you don't know who I am? I'm taking you out. I mean, who doesn't know who George Clooney is? For goodness sakes, unbelievable. Look, here's the reality. You know, I know, everyone knew that Biden was a disaster. I mean, how many clips did we run over and over again? They used to call them cheap fakes, right? They were cheap fakes. When you would say that Biden was not kind of what he once was. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How could this not be something that you would recognize and understand? I mean, Biden was in a pretty tough spot. And yet KJP said, no, nothing to see here, that these are nothing but a bunch of cheap fakes, remember? KJP, she is darn mad about what she calls cheap fakes.
They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith. And some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation.
Cheap fake. Do you know what cheap fake is? According to the newest meme going around, any unedited video of Joe Biden's cognitive decline that the Biden administration does not want the public to see. You got that right. KJP, clever, but no one's buying it. Yeah, I just say insane that they would look at things like this. I mean, we played the entire video, all of it, guys. remember this moment at G7? I know I keep showing it, but it was just my favorite sort of example. And I love the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, exiting the group. She's like the only one out of the crew that notices that poor Biden is wandering off because he's so entranced by the parachuter over there. And then she's like, no, we get a photo op. And he doesn't quite know what to do. He's trying to put his sunglasses on. He's so slow. And you know what? Unfortunately, if you've had any experience with this, and sadly I have, probably a lot of you have. I mean, you reach a certain age and those that you love often go through something like this, and you see it and you know what it is. But every time I played any of these videos, I mean, even when he would zone out and the reporters were asking questions, I mean, those were unbelievable moments. Anytime I did that, I had to be like, well, I'm not a doctor, because immediately people would jump on you and say that's a cheap fake. And I'm like, it's not a cheap fake. This is the raw video. This is what we're all looking at. Can we just be adults in the room and actually call it what it is? But no, you couldn't call it what it was, because the media Gestapo would go crazy on you, totally crazy on you, including Jake Tapper, who, by the way, is so proud. He's out with a brand new book that he wrote with some Axios guy, Thompson, and the two of them are like promoting this thing. And I'm just grossed out because this is a total scam. Jake Tapper, don't forget, he was the guy who got all over Lara Trump just like a couple of weeks before the big debate where we all realized, okay, well, I mean, I realized it way earlier. You realized it way earlier. The whole world knew it. It's just that the media was trying to go with some stupid narrative that he was the best Biden ever, right? And yet, Jake tried to take out Lara for saying that the guy had a mental decline. She accused him of saying that Biden has a stutter. And what does she say to kids everywhere? I mean, it was surreal. This is the guy who's trying to make millions of dollars now, selling you a bunch of additional lies.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to watch somebody on stage search for
so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter.
Yeah,
I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure.
And so he just cuts her off. This is the guy trying to make millions of dollars on a new book that you better not buy.
Jake Tapper here, Alex Thompson from Axios, and I.
Gonna turn it up.
It's coming out next Tuesday. It's called Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. The book is drawn from more than 200 interviews with mostly Democratic insiders, almost all of them after the election. And one of the things we were shocked to learn, the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, talked about how if Biden had one more fall, he might actually need to be in a wheelchair. But this was all put off until after the election. They did not want images of Biden in a wheelchair out there. You might recall that Biden started to have problems with a shuffling gait that the administration was very sensitive about. There was a time when they started having people walk with him to Marine One. Those people were there to kind of like hide the fact that his gait was as bad as it was, and also have them there in case he stumbled. The White House would say that this gait issue was because Biden had fallen after the election of 2020, but the truth is that it didn't have to do with that. Dr. O'Connor's medical report said that that injury was completely healed. This had to do with other degenerative problems.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So the guy who tried to sell you a bunch of goods and tell you that, Biden was just fine is now trying to profit off this new book. And I kind of just, it's to be expected, I guess. These people are just commercial animals. And that's why they did what they did, frankly, for 4 years. And now he's seeing a new commercial opportunity where he can write a book when he was the one who was guilty of upholding this idea that somehow Joe Biden was absolutely stellar. And then it was only when his buddy George Clooney, along with David Plouffe and David Axelrod and Obama, came to him and said, maybe he's not doing so well, and it was decided that George Clooney would write this op-ed, then he decided to come forward, and he was, Mr. Tapper, I'm all over this, that is not a good Joe Biden that we're seeing. And then he got on CNN, and he started saying that over and over again. And I would just say, guys, you know what? I see through every single bit of it. This is what you call CYA. Tapper's in a CYA move because he believes that if he can write this book and make a pretty penny off of it, then maybe he would be better off. I do think, though, that it may have a little something to do with him getting in with the in crowd. I mean, is he trying to impress, shall we say, one George Clooney? George Clooney did this big interview with him, and Clooney's like, I'm just trying to do my part, blah, blah, blah. I know I'm not very popular anymore, but I'm just trying to do my part. And, basically what happened was Clooney became the main source in the book that Tapper wrote. And Tapper's trying to clean up his own reputation and George Clooney's simultaneously, all while charging a pretty penny to do it. I'll tell you, these people, it's like totally shameless. You know who else is totally shameless? All those people like Jen Psaki, who sat there and tried to tell us it was A-OK. All those people like Morning Joe, best Biden ever. Remember that one? I mean, totally, utterly pathetic. So, you know what? Just don't watch them. They deserve the ratings they're getting. They deserve to go out of business, and they will. Believe me, mark my words. That's why we're over here. It's why I've had opportunities to go back. I just got somebody called me the other day, wants me to go back to regular television. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm having a blast. This is fantastic. I don't have to deal with any middle management bosses. I get to say whatever I want to say. And I got you guys. And we're building something that's actually my own. I mean, think about that. The Trish Regan channel, which I think we're going to rename to the network, right? This is something, thanks to all of you. I mean, upwards of 750,000 subs. Thank you. It's incredible. This next story is absolutely hilarious. I got to tell you about Elon Musk's AI platform, Grok. It's kind of cool. I actually use it sometimes, and it's a very neat platform. Someone decided to ask, who might Donald Trump be talking about when he went in front of cameras just the other day and said, hey, we're going to get most favored nation in terms of drug pricing. We're going to bring these drug prices down because it's not fair. I get this guy, my fat buddy, who's taking the fat shot, and he pays all this money here in New York, but when he's in London, it's a fraction of the cost. And so people wanted to know, well, who's the fat buddy that he's talking about? And Grok had an answer. But first, watch the soundbite. Here's Donald Trump talking about his friend who takes the fat shot.
I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up. And he said, President, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on?
It's funny. I was just gulping my water as I listened to that. Totally funny. So I have my own idea on who the fat buddy could have been. and I don't want to say it because it's kind of, it's a little bit mean and I don't want to, but Grok also has its idea on who the fat buddy is. And drumroll, please, drumroll. Can you guys guess? Grok thinks it's Elon. His own platform thinks it's him. I actually don't think it is, but I just was dying at this. Apparently, Elon has admitted to taking Ozempic, so, that made sense, I guess. And then you think about a super successful, super well-known business person who's kind of neurotic. Yeah, it's starting to sound like Elon bit by bit, but this just cracked me up. So the Daily Mail had a piece on it. The comment went viral. Of course, the comment I just showed you, and had many wondering who the president could be referring to. So one person decided to ask Grok, the Elon Musk created AI app that lives on the social media platform X. And the response was, quote, "It's likely Trump was referring to Elon Musk, given Musk's public use of weight loss drugs like Ozempic and his global business profile." The thing is, though, if you listen carefully, Donald Trump said, hey, buddy, it's not working. It's not working. And I do think that actually it has worked for Elon. I think Elon was a little bit upset. A while back, he was caught somewhere. I want to say like off the coast of Sardinia or something a couple of years ago. And they were in the plane. This is actually getting kind of funny. So Donald Trump's like, heck, they want to give me a plane. I've been sitting here waiting on Boeing, which can't get out of its own way. And somebody wants to give me a plane? Like, why the heck wouldn't I take that offer? Here he is talking with ABC News. He also admitted on Fox just last night, and I want to get to that next, that it's kind of pathetic that we have Air Force One, which is so outranked by all these other planes. It's like this puny little plane. And as I told you at the top of the show, CEOs, they tend to take the plane thing kind of seriously. I've been with some of them, and they're like, you'll get to the airport, and I've ridden actually on some of these planes, and like they're looking out and they see somebody else's plane. They're like, oh, it's this whole thing. Like a whole weird subculture of CEO life. They're really into their planes. So it does not surprise me that Donald Trump is into his plane as well. We'll get to that. But first, listen to what he told the ABC reporter.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why
it's
not?
Only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us, I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. There was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Respectfully, sir, as a businessman, some people may look at this and say, have you ever been given a gift worth millions of dollars and did not receive anything?
It's not a gift to me, it's a gift to the Department of Defense. And you should know better, because you've been embarrassed enough, and so has your network. Your network is a disaster. ABC is a disaster.
Doesn't it feel like your dad or your grandpa or something just saying, hey, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Sam Snead, remember that story. You know what? You just keep moving on. You want to give me something great? You want to give the American people something great? I think I'm willing to take it. And by the way, the thing that I have, I'm not really liking very much. He is you-know-what about this puny little plane. Again, CEOs care about the size of the plane. They care about how new it is, how tricked out it is. It's like a whole subculture of CEO life. And I bet it kind of irritated him. Well, I know it kind of irritated him. He told Sean last night it irritated him. He saw Air Force One looking so puny on the tarmac compared to all those Middle Eastern planes. Here we go.
I said, where's the plane? And they having difficulty. I'm not happy with Boeing, but we're going to work on Boeing. And Boeing's got some unbelievable people working for it. So I'm not going to do anything bad to Boeing. But They had a strong contract. I wrote the contract. It was a guaranteed price contract. And if I wanted to, I could, hurt Boeing, and I don't want to hurt Boeing. But they are very late with the plane, and Qatar heard about it, and he's a great leader. And we were talking, and he said, if I can help you, let me do that. And they had a plane, not a new plane at all, but they had a plane. And these planes, the plane that you're on right now is almost 40 years old. And when you land and you see Saudi Arabia and you see UAE and you see Qatar and you see all these, and they have these brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it. This is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller, it's much less impressive as it is. And we're the United States of America. I believe that we should have the most impressive plane. So anyway, so they said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things, and we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift? Because it's going to be a couple of years, I think, before the Boeings are finished. And they'll be wonderful when they're finished, but that's a long time.
Part of your argument how the United States has paid untold billions and trillions of dollars securing every aspect of the world?
Well, I said that. I said, we've secured that part of the world for many years. So if somebody makes a gift, then I get nothing. I get to fly it like any other president would. Ultimately, it'll be at the end of its lifetime or at the end of the term, because we're going to have the other ones in by that time.
So the U.S. is kind of giving them gifts. It's called national defense.
Yeah. No, security. Well, we give a lot of gifts. We give too many gifts, to be honest with you. We give gifts to defend countries. They wouldn't even exist. Many countries wouldn't even exist. All over the world, countries wouldn't even exist. But I thought it was a beautiful gesture. Now, there are those that say we shouldn't be accepting gifts to the Defense Department. And I would say only a stupid person would say that. Why wouldn't we do that? And so it helps us out because we'll have a relatively new plane instead of having 40-year-old planes. These planes are 40 years old, and that's not representative of our country.
Wow. So, if you really peel back the layers and you think about this, he's making the point that, we gift all this money all over the world. And so they're going to give us this gift. Maybe why not? We take it. I will tell you that he's not exactly somebody who's going to say, oh, okay, well, because you gave me this, I'm going to give you this, and this. In fact, his very good ally there in Israel, he apparently blew off. He had an opportunity to stop there in Israel first, and he kind of went straight to Saudi Arabia. And he's doing that stuff with Syrians and revoking sanctions and this, that, and the other. And people were kind of surprised, right? Because Netanyahu, Israel, they're kind of, very, very chummy, and yet he just kept moving on. So he's not necessarily, just because, okay, Qatar gives them a wonderful $400 million plane doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to then extend the favor. The other thing that's important about that is what he's saying is that no, it's not a gift for me, it's a gift for the Defense Department, and the Defense Department will keep it. So why am I going to charge taxpayer dollars? It's a different way of thinking about things. Of course, everybody worries that they're buying influence. Ben Rhodes, who was high up in the Obama administration, was on recently a podcast or MSNBC, I'm not sure which one, but he went on to discuss this, and his view on this, again, Ben Rhodes from the Obama administration, he's the guy that believed you could just create this echo chamber of news and then somehow infiltrate public opinion that way. He's probably also the guy who had a hand in the repeal of the Smith-Mundt Act back in 2013, which enabled taxpayer dollars to then be used not just overseas for trying to affect public opinion, but back here in the good old US of A. Let's listen to one Mr. Rhodes talking about how the Saudis offered him all kinds of gifts. I'm just going to point out the obvious, which is totally different. Ben, if you were getting gifts, then if the president is getting Air Force One that's going to be retrofitted and outfitted by our own defense team, and it is something that will stay in the Department of Defense, unlike the jewels you allegedly got. By the way, I think Biden kept those things. Hunter, remember? Ben said he was offered something similar.
Or they can be loaned out to presidential libraries. Now, I remember this all made me think about one particular trip back in 2009 when President Obama went to Saudi Arabia. And the king gave gifts, big ones, not just to the Obamas, but to several of his advisors, including Ben Rhodes, who wrote about it in his book, The World as It Is. And he wrote about what was waiting for him in his room on that trip when he returned from a day of meetings. Here's what he wrote. When I opened the door to my unit, I found a large suitcase. Inside were jewels. Now, pivotally, he explains, no one kept them. It feels like this White House, I think it's safe to say, is approaching things a little bit differently, but it felt worth discussing how this is supposed to work. So joining me now is Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor for President Obama, and someone I trust as much as anybody to explain foreign policy stuff like this and many other things. Okay, Ben, I was not on this trip. I do remember it well because I think it was sort of shocking to those of you who received these suitcases, this surprise suitcases of jewels and other things. And I remember you all wanting to kind of get as far away from it as possible. So I just want to start there because I think it helps explain how abnormal what we're seeing now is.
Yeah, Jen, I remember it well. It was one of the first trips we took overseas in 2009. I had not slept on the plane. I was working on a speech that President Obama gave in Cairo, which was a high-profile speech. And I come into this room I'm staying in. It was kind of like almost like a bungalow. And there's just a suitcase there right inside the door. And I open it, and it was full of these jewels kind of mounted on this suitcase. And for a minute, I kind of panicked because I thought, well, maybe they know I'm the speechwriter writing this high-profile speech he's giving to the world, and this is some kind of, extra special gift for me. But then I quickly found out that everybody had gotten these suitcases, and we were very quickly told by the State Protocol Office that helps plan these visits to just give them the suitcases. I think this thing was in my possession for, not even a night. And we were offered the opportunity to pay tens of thousands of dollars of our own money if we wanted to keep these things. We obviously didn't do that. And didn't even think about it. It wouldn't have even crossed my mind to kind of take some of these jewels and slide it in my bag. Little did I know that if it had been a $400 million plane, maybe I could have kept it, or maybe a $2 billion investment in my fund, as Jared Kushner got. But times seem to have changed.
It's quaint almost remembering these times. It was like a hot potato wanting to get rid of the...
I'm dying. I'm looking at your comments. You guys are funny. I knew she's hard to watch, Peppermint Patty. And they actually have her replacing Rachel Maddow, if you can imagine. And if things weren't bad enough for Rachel Maddow with those ratings, woo, they've fallen off a cliff with little Peppermint Patty, who brings on her friends like Ben Rhodes. Okay, but you see there's a difference, right? Because in that case, it would have been jewels for Ben and maybe his wife or a significant other or God knows what. Maybe we would have traded him in for cash. I don't know. But they were an individual gift. The difference here is it's a gift to the government. And so it strikes me as kind of a different proposition. And I know that they're saying, he could use it for the presidential library. He's saying, no, it's going to go to the Defense Department. It's a gift to the Defense Department. So, hey, you know what? Get over yourselves, please. Enough already. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Remember the Sam Snee story, okay? It's not personal, it's to the U.S. government. And as long as we're able to retrofit it and make sure that it's secure, et cetera, hey, maybe this is the fire in their step that they need over at Boeing. Boeing, wake up. Your contract's overdue. You got to get with the program and get them the darn plane, for goodness sakes. Oh, wow, we got a market that's been on fire. Did you see the NASDAQ today? Way up again. Let me check. Just before I came to air, I think we were up about 0.6%. We're still up 0.6%. S&P up a touch. Dow Jones Industrial Average just about flat. But guys, this is amazing. We have completely recovered everything that we have lost since Liberation Day. And you know what? I told you it would happen, did I not? Well, you know what? I'm not the only one who told you it would happen. Somebody else told you it would happen. Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest bill of its kind ever in the history of this country. And Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune have done an incredible job. I mean, I'll let you know we have to get a vote, but we have a lot of support for that bill. And if that happens on top of all of these trade deals that we're doing, this country will hit a point that you better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship that goes straight up. This is going to be numbers that nobody's ever seen before. That's a very important element of all of this. You know, if we get that, if you don't, and the Democrats are fighting it only because they want to fight. They have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, if it was somebody else, they wouldn't fight. If you had a normal person, if you had some stiff sitting behind you, they'd be fine. But they have Trump derangement syndrome. Senator Schumer's become a Palestinian. Welcome. I don't know when they're going to give him the ceremony, whatever the ceremony may be. But it's terrible what's happened to the Democrats. So very, very important element of everything, of what we're doing.
Did you hear Howard Lutnick yakking it up in the background? Anyway, you know, Letitia's going after him for that one. I think, there was the Liberation Day moment right after Liberation Day when things were really in the, you know what? He said on True Social, go out and buy stocks, similar to what we told you there at 76 Research. Make sure you subscribe to the 76 report so you are up on all of this. There's a lot of opportunity to be had. It's only $1 a month. It's my gift to all of my viewers. I created this with all of you guys in mind because so many people have said to me, I've had a 20-some-odd year background in financial markets, and they're like, what do I do? How do I invest? And I'm like, okay, it's time. I need to be able to do something outside of the show every day that really enables people to have a more prosperous future. So I created this with my friend Rob, 76research.com. Use code word $. But the point being that Donald Trump said as things were totally tanking and as it seemed like the wheels were coming off the bus after Peter Navarro came up with all those tariffs, which were sort of like worst case scenario things. And I said the same thing. I actually went in very hard, very hard. It's what I do. I don't entirely know why. Like, you know, I should have more fear, I guess, but I don't. I mean, it's like what happened during 2020 in March 2020. I was furious because the stock market was selling off so badly. And I'm like, this is nuts. Like, you guys are just totally nuts. There are long-term fundamentals that are really, really good for our country and our economy. And I have a feeling that Donald Trump is going to come through with ways to make this all right. And the Federal Reserve is going to come through, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, the market's tanking and I bought. And it's the same thing that I did the other day. I like buying when things are low, right? Buy low, sell high. That's the whole idea. So go check out 76research.com. I do want to point out a couple things, big deals being announced at this moment, guys. We've got Boeing getting a huge deal. So over in Saudi Arabia, you know, it's one of the places all of these companies go to do big deals. Boeing and GE Aerospace have secured a deal. Amazing. A 96, let me get this on the screen for you, secure a $96 billion order from Qatar. This is incredible, right? From Qatar Airlines. So, you know, look, they may not be able to get Air Force One done, but they're going to get this Qatar Airlines for aircraft and engines. So that's kind of a big deal. It's very good news for Boeing. And you wonder, like, how much just Donald Trump showing them a little bit of love, Donald Trump saying, yeah, we'll consider this possible Air Force One is contributing to that. So that's a big deal. And there's another one that's getting announced. I wanted to tell you about America also signing a deal. So let me get this on the screen for you. This is huge. Signs deal. Let's make sure I spell it right. Deals with U.S. companies. $90 billion. So $90 billion. What he's doing is he's going around the world. This is the Saudi Arabian company. So they are doing big deals with ExxonMobil, with NVIDIA, and also with Amazon. So another huge opportunity here for U.S. companies. In other words, let's get business here in the U.S. This is a business person we have in the White House. So now, remember, guys, make sure you subscribe, share, like. It is so great to have all of you here. I really do appreciate all the love and attention that you have brought to this show, and you are the reason we are the success we are. So thank you for that. Make a comment below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you right back here live tomorrow.